Hey, you! Stop right there and put down that bag. I'm sure you stole it, just like you stole that uniform.
Excuse me? Why are you stopping me?
Don't play coy. Drop the bag, sailor. Let's check what you're hiding.
Sir, that's my bag and this is my uniform. I just got off a flight. What's the problem?
The problem is it doesn't add up. People like you don't walk around looking like that unless it's a scam.
November 16th, 2024, Downers Grove, Illinois. The air was cold, but the atmosphere inside a quiet suburban home was rapidly heating. Law enforcement officers arrived, not in response to an emergency, but to execute a planned arrest. This wasn't a negotiation or a mediation. This was the final step in a process already set in motion. "You're trying to arrest me," a woman named Alexandra stated, her voice laced with disbelief. The officers stood calmly on her porch, their presence a stark contrast to her rising panic. She had no prior record, no history with the law. Yet at this moment, her life was about to pivot dramatically. An unseen incident at a Panera Bread the day before was now arriving at her doorstep, threatening to unravel everything she knew. This encounter highlights how quickly a verbal disagreement can escalate into serious felony charges. It dismantles the common belief that being a law-abiding citizen provides immunity when emotions override judgment in a public space. The lead officer, calm and methodical, introduced himself. "Hi, Alexandra. I just got to have a couple of words with you." He explained the reason for their visit with practiced precision. "Yesterday you had an incident up in Panera. Due to that, there are charges for battery that are placed against you." Alexandra's immediate reaction was a baffled, "Against me?" She couldn't comprehend why she, a mother and a wife, would be the subject of such a serious accusation. This was the moment her perceived reality began to collide with the harsh procedural facts. The officer continued, unwavering. "I'm going to have to place you under arrest for battery." He offered to read her Miranda rights, confirming she understood the gravity of the situation. He asked if discussing this in front of her husband was acceptable. She agreed, still processing the word arrest. What the officers didn't realize yet was the depth of her denial. They explained that videos of the Panera incident existed, including footage from a female manager. These recordings, they stated, showed Alexandra as the initial aggressor. Her version of events immediately diverged. "I didn't do anything," she insisted, explaining she simply didn't like what someone was wearing. The officer remained focused. He clarified the central issue. "The video shows an altercation between your wife and the male party who is in between his wife, who is recording your wife due to her actions." Alexandra quickly interjected, explaining she told the woman to stop recording because she was talking to the man. The officers pressed further. "Did you attempt to grab the phone?" After a slight pause, she conceded, "Yes." This single admission was a critical turning point. The officer calmly explained the legal reality. "She's allowed to record you. It's a public area. You can't be grabbing people's phones." The law views a phone in someone's hand as an extension of their person. Grabbing it, in the eyes of the law, constitutes battery. Alexandra was read her Miranda rights again, the formal words washing over her as she struggled to grasp their meaning. "What does this mean?" she asked, her voice tinged with a desperate plea for understanding. No, what mean to arrest? I'm going to go to..." The officer patiently broke down the procedure. "We'll be transporting you to the Downers Grove Police Department. We will be booked and processed." He tried to alleviate her immediate fear, adding, "That doesn't mean that you're going to jail, but it does mean that we do have to take you back to the police department." This was the state's attorney's decision now. Her husband interjected, trying to understand how to acquire an attorney. The officer reiterated her rights, but Alexandra's need to explain her side persisted. She believed if she could just make them understand, the situation would dissolve. This desperate need to control the narrative would prove to be a catastrophic error. The officer, sensing her confusion, clarified the core of the video evidence. The video shows that your wife attempts to take a phone from a female. The husband of that female gets in between them because he does not want her to be taking the phone at that point. This was where the official version of events starkly diverged from Alexandra's self-perception. She continued to assert that the man was between us. The officer agreed with that specific detail, explaining why he was there. He did not want you taking his wife's phone. The subtle distinction was already lost on Alexandra. From here, there was no easy exit. The officer's questioning probed deeper into the physical altercation. He noted the video footage showed Alexandra appearing about to throw coffee. She quickly countered, "But I didn't," confirming that the coffee was not spilled on the other person. However, she claimed it was spilled on her. This was a crucial distinction, attempting to flip the victim-aggressor dynamic. Yet, the officer didn't stop there. He then delivered another damning piece of evidence from the footage. After you had the tussle with the coffee, you made contact with the left side of his face. You swung at his face. Alexandra's defense was immediate. "He did, because he threatened me." She claimed he said, "I'm going to hit you." This was the moment the officer exposed a critical contradiction. "You said several times that you were going to hit him." Alexandra vehemently denied this, insisting, "No, I'm going to hit you." The officer clarified, "She made contact with the left side of his face." Alexandra still desperately wanted to see the video, convinced it would prove her innocence. The officer assured her she had a right to see it, but not on her porch. What Alexandra failed to grasp was that the police weren't investigating, they were confirming. The officer then brought up the origin of the entire confrontation, something the Panera manager's video also corroborated. This whole incident was provocated by them alleging that you walked up to them and said Palestine because they had the word Palestine on the back of their shirt. He explained, "That is what provocated this. That's what would make you the primary aggressor." Alexandra's response further implicated her. She admitted to saying, "Why are you making this political statement killing the Jew?" She then accused them of saying, "Kill the Jews." The officer cut her off, refusing to engage in the political argument. "We are not taking any political stance. The only thing that we are here to discuss is the battery that occurred at Panera." This exchange was not just about establishing facts, it was about establishing motive. She pointed out that the video showed the man pushing her. She argued that if he had just let her go, it would just be over. Again, she invoked freedom of speech, asserting her right to say what she wanted. The officer patiently reiterated the legal boundaries. "I'm not taking anything away from your civil rights. The only thing that we are here to discuss right now is the battery and disorderly conduct that occurred." Alexandra's persistent focus on the other party intensified. "Are you going to arrest him?" she demanded, portraying him as the aggressor who charged at me and terrorized me. The officer asked when these threats occurred. Alexandra became evasive, unable to pinpoint if it was before or after the coffee incident, only insisting he threatened me. Her husband, observing the escalating self-incrimination, stepped in. "Don't say anything anymore. You read the rights that you have the right to the attorney and you don't have to say anything," he cautioned her, "because they're going to use everything against you." This was a rare moment of clarity, a desperate attempt to protect her from herself. But the psychological need to explain proved stronger than legal caution. Despite the husband's intervention, the officers moved forward with the arrest. They advised Alexandra to leave any unwanted belongings with her husband. The separation was beginning. Her husband inquired if he could accompany her, but was told he would have to drive to the police department himself. This solidified the reality of her individual confinement. Alexandra began to worry about basic needs. "I'm freaking hungry, I need to drink something." The officers assured her she would have access to water and snacks at the station. They continued the process of taking her into custody, asking her to change and leave most of her purse contents behind, citing privacy concerns and department policy. If you bring your purse with you, and we have to search that entire purse and all its contents. A new question emerged. How did they know her name and address? Alexandra's husband inquired. Somebody had to input the information in the computer. The officer confirmed. A third-party person informed us of her information. This revealed the remote digital nature of the investigation that preceded their arrival. The investigation was largely complete before they even knocked on her door. As Alexandra prepared to change, the conversation took another turn into personal anxieties. "My daughter is so sick. I need to talk to her." The officers, while sympathetic, maintained the procedural line. "We'll let you make phone calls when we get to the station." This was a stark reminder of the system's indifference to personal obligations. The moment of physical restraint arrived. "Ma'am, we do have to put you in handcuffs," the officer stated calmly. He offered a small concession, promising not to put her in the patrol car until her husband returned from getting changed. This was a tactical maneuver, preserving compliance while upholding security. Alexandra's focus, however, remained on the perceived injustice against her. "Did you arrest him? I want to see him arrested for what he did. I still have coffee on my hair was wet, my face." She saw herself as the victim, ignoring the objective reality the officers had described. This was the moment her narrative completely failed under pressure. The officer directly addressed her deflection. "Had you not made the comment that you made and kept on going on with it?" He implied her initial actions were the catalyst. Alexandra again shifted blame. "If he wouldn't react, how many people attack me because you have a silly accent or something? So I'm going to go after them." The officer carefully avoided validating her rationale. "I can't make any comment on that, ma'am, because I'm not in your shoes." He then reiterated the core issue. "The problem is, in this situation, you are the one who made the initial contact between that couple and yourself by the comment that you made." This, he explained, devolved the situation into where we're at now. Her perception of herself as a law-abiding citizen, a wife and mother with no records, directly clashed with the reality of her impending arrest. "This is crazy," she exclaimed, her voice strained. "I look like an offender." She desperately sought to understand, where is freedom of speech? The officer remained steadfast, stating the legal parameters clearly. "Unfortunately, ma'am, just due to the circumstances of this, because you have been identified as the main aggressor in this situation, and you attempting to grab his wife's phone out of his hand was something that she's allowed to do." Alexandra's worry about the video intensified. "Nah, she's going to probably delete some parts of the video where he was the aggressor." The officer again pushed responsibility to the next stage of the legal process. "If that is the case, then that will be the state's attorney's job to figure that out." The officers were not there to litigate. To make her more comfortable, she was cuffed in front rather than behind her back. Her property, including her phone, was taken for safekeeping and placed in the front of the patrol car. Alexandra questioned this, seeing it as a double standard since public recording was deemed legal. The officer explained it was standard policy to prevent recording within the police vehicle. The physical boundaries of her freedom were now tightening. The officer reassured her about her phone, promising they wouldn't access its contents. He then double-locked the handcuffs to prevent them from tightening further. Her apology, "I'm so sorry," now came too late. An emotional response to a factual inevitability. Inside the squad car, a new phase of the experience began. Alexandra was in an unknown, a place she had never been. The officer calmly outlined the booking procedures, fingerprinting, completing complaint paperwork. He couldn't give her an exact time frame, only that they would work as quickly as possible. Her monologue continued, a desperate stream of self-justification. I never did anything wrong. I mean, I have no records, guys. I'm just wife and mother. She reiterated her belief in freedom of speech and insisted that if the man wouldn't attack me, this wouldn't be happening. She confessed, "You really can do with me anything what you want because I don't know my rights." This was a plea for leniency, born of fear and ignorance, but legally it was an admission of vulnerability that would not alter the course of justice. The officer patiently promised to read her Miranda rights again at the station, a standard procedure, but one that highlighted her previous failure to comprehend their significance. The emotional shock was palpable. I have nothing against you guys. It's just such a shock. This was the trauma of total institutional control beginning to set in. She was no longer just arguing, she was being processed. Her every word now provided more ammunition for the prosecution. The officer's calm procedural demeanor masked the calculated legal strategy already in motion. This was not an on-scene investigation, but the execution of a decision made days prior. The arrest was pre-approved, armed with probable cause established remotely through open-source intelligence. The video evidence, openly available on platforms like Reddit, had already sealed Alexandra's fate before they even knocked on her door. This delay removed any heat of passion defense. Her actions were no longer seen as a spontaneous reaction, but as the foundation for criminal charges. The critical legal pivot was the application of the hate crime statute. A misdemeanor battery, such as an argument over a parking spot, carries lesser penalties. But because Alexandra's physical confrontation was explicitly linked to the victim's national identity, the charge escalated dramatically. The law views bias-motivated violence not just as a harm to an individual, but to the entire community. Her repeated invocation of freedom of speech as a defense was legally unsound. The First Amendment protects words, but not physical actions that are insulting, provoking, or harmful. The law distinguishes between pure speech and conduct. Her attempt to grab the phone and the physical contact with the man crossed the Rubicon from protected expression to criminal battery. This wasn't about her opinion on the Middle East. It was about her physical actions. During the interview, Alexandra provided the very evidence needed for the felony enhancement. On her admission that the confrontation was sparked by the word Palestine on the victim's clothing, explicitly linked her physical aggression to the victim's perceived national origin or political affiliation. This was a catastrophic legal error, a self-incriminating confession to the specific bias motive required for a hate crime. Her husband's desperate plea for her to remain silent was a critical missed opportunity. Despite being read her Miranda rights, Alexandra continued to talk, driven by a deep-seated need to control the narrative and justify her anger. She believed that explaining her upset would make the charges disappear. But the officer was not a mediator. He was an enforcer. Every word she spoke, every explanation she offered, served only to corroborate the video evidence and solidify the prosecution's case. Her claims of feeling terrorized and the man being a terrorist clashed directly with the initial aggressor doctrine. The law states you cannot instigate a physical conflict, escalate it, and then claim self-defense when the other person reacts. Her actions in the video, advancing, lunging, grabbing, contradicted her words of fear. Genuine fear for safety typically leads to retreat, not escalation. The officers skillfully managed the situation. Their concessive policing, polite, patient, allowing her to vent, prevented a physical struggle. But it also allowed her to provide massive amounts of self-incriminating data. This tactic effectively led her to talk herself into a conviction. Had she simply stated, "I am invoking my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer," the arrest would still have occurred, but the prosecution would have lacked her direct confession to the critical motive element. The hot mic in the squad car was another silent trap. Legally, there is no expectation of privacy in a police vehicle. Her continued monologue about being a law-abiding citizen, her disbelief, and her lack of perceived wrongdoing would paint a picture for a jury or judge that suggested a lack of remorse or insight. This could significantly impact sentencing. The legal consequence of a felony hate crime conviction is severe: potential prison time, a permanent felony record, and the destruction of her professional and personal reputation. This was not an inevitable outcome, but a direct result of her specific words and physical actions. Ignorance of the law, as she claimed, is no legal excuse. The standard for battery is universal. A reasonable person does not confront strangers over clothing and initiate physical contact. By crossing that line, she subjected herself to the full weight of the criminal justice system. The cost of speaking her mind with her hands was swiftly escalating from a regrettable argument to a life-altering legal reality. The arrest was complete, but the consequences were just beginning to unfurl. Alexandra was about to enter a world governed by rigid legal procedures, far removed from her previous life of autonomy. Her fixation on her sick daughter, her immediate need to make a phone call, underscored the brutal collision between personal life and institutional control. The system, once engaged, is indifferent to individual obligations. For someone unaccustomed to the criminal justice system, the sudden loss of control over her phone, her movement, even her ability to use a bathroom is psychologically shattering. This shock was evident in her repeated pleas, her questions about what would happen next. She was experiencing the trauma of total institutional power for the first time. When did this become legally irreversible? One could argue it was the moment she crossed the physical barrier at Panera, but legally, the point of no return was the physical contact. Shouting, arguing, being rude, these are protected. The millisecond her hand touched another person in anger, her fate was sealed. There is no undo button for battery. Would silence have changed the outcome? The arrest would have still happened. The video evidence was already compelling, but silence would have prevented the confession to the hate crime element. By explicitly stating that Palestine was the trigger for her actions, she did the prosecutor's job for them. A skilled defense attorney might have argued the altercation was about the filming or personal space or simple rudeness. Her words eliminated those crucial defense avenues. Silence is the only tool a defendant has to preserve their options for trial. This case serves as a stark warning about the toxicity of modern political discourse bleeding into real-world physical confrontations. The internet has normalized aggressive rhetoric, fostering a false sense of impunity. But the physical world operates under strict laws regarding bodily autonomy. Bringing internet-level aggression into a Panera Bread results in real-world felony charges. Alexandra forgot she was not in a comment section. She was in a jurisdiction with a criminal code. The foundational lessons here are critical for every citizen. First, impulse control is a legal survival skill. The ability to feel anger without acting on it is the primary barrier between freedom and incarceration. Second, the good person fallacy is dangerous. Believing your background protects you from consequences often leads to over-talking and self-incrimination. The police investigate acts, not biographies. Third, in any interaction with law enforcement where you are the target of an investigation, the only correct words are, "I am invoking my right to remain silent, and I would like an attorney." Everything else is potential evidence. The delay in the arrest, waiting until the next day, was also a strategic move by the prosecution. It allowed the state's attorney to review the footage and approve felony charges before the arrest was made. This pre-vetted approach ensures the charges stick, preventing a catch-and-release scenario. When officers knocked on her door, they were armed with a charging decision already vetted by legal professionals, making the arrest a formality, not an investigation. The arrest of Alexandra is not a tragedy of circumstance. It is a tragedy of choice. It is the result of a series of decisions: to approach, to engage, to touch, and then to confess. These decisions systematically stripped away her legal defenses. It underscores the immense power of video evidence to cut through subjective narratives and the relentless machinery of the justice system once a line is crossed. For the viewer, the takeaway is clear. In a world of high tensions and recording devices, the ultimate power move is not to win the argument, but to walk away with your freedom intact. The cost of speaking your mind with your hands can be a lifetime of regret, a permanent felony record, and the loss of the very citizenship status the suspect so proudly claimed. The system took her words and transformed them into weapons against her. But what if she had remained silent? What if the initial comment had never been uttered? We may never know the full extent of the ripple effect caused by a single, impulsive moment in a public place.